Dust rose in low spirals from the dead earth, curling around worn boots like ghosts trying to climb. The heat hadn't broken in 4 days, and the bones of the sky stretched thin and white above the post. Nothing moved, not even the dogs asleep. Under the wagon, their ribs pressing against brittle skin, Cash and Red rode in slow, saddle creaking, coat stiff with old blood and dust. He didn't wear a gun on his hip anymore, just a knife tied to the inside of his boot, and the weight of years he didn't speak of, He wasn't meant to stop here, The trading post leaned crooked against the wind, held together by nails and hate. A few ex-soldiers loafed on the porch, spitting tobacco and scratching the dirt with boot tips. There was something off in the air, thick, like the breath before thunder. He needed jerky, maybe a new stirrup. Nothing else, then he saw. Her, they dragged her from the back of a broken wagon. She wasn't screaming, wasn't crying, just staring. Her dress was torn, the hem barely brushing her knees. Her hair was chopped uneven, like someone had done it blind or bitter. A raw chain looped around her wrists, barefoot, knees bloodied. Young, but not a child, Cashin didn't flinch. He stepped off his horse like he'd done it 1,000 times, like his leg didn't throb every damn step, like he hadn't buried 2 daughters under a willow tree back in '67, the auctioneer. Raised his voice coarse, loud, She ain't sick, just stubborn. Says she's Cherokee, but she speaks better English than my damn wife. Startin' at $5. No one moved. One man laughed. Cashin reached into his coat and pulled out $3 silver. They hit the ground like gunshots. The porch fell quiet. The auctioneer blinked, spit, and squinted. 3? That's a joke, son. Cashin didn't answer. Just stared. Something about him, the limp, the glassy right eye. The silence made the men step back. The auctioneer coughed, shrugged. Hell, take her. Ain't like she's worth more than the dust. They shoved her forward. Her wrists jerked as they unhooked the chains. She stumbled, steadied herself, and looked up at him. For the first time, their eyes met, not fear. Not thanks, recognition. She stepped close, barely up to his chest, and whispered, They'll come for you next. 'Cause of what you forgot. He went still as a grave. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. She stepped back, eyes unreadable, and walked toward his horse like it already belonged to her. Climbed up behind the saddle, gripped the horn. Said nothing else. Cashin didn't ask questions, didn't look back. Just mounted and rode out into the heat. They rode for miles in silence. The sun falling behind rust-colored hills. She didn't ask his name, he didn't offer it. Her hands were like paper pressed to his back. Every so often she'd hum a broken sound. A lullaby twisted by dust and distance. He knew that tune, but he couldn't remember where from. Not fully. At the edge of a dry riverbed, they made camp. She collected kindling. He built the fire. Their shadows reached long into the dark, stretching out like they were trying to remember what it felt like to be whole. He handed her a piece of hard bread. She took it, ate slow. Still not speaking, Cashin. Sat across the flame, watching the way she stared into the fire like it owed her something. Her arms were wrapped around her knees now. Her feet were blistered raw. The wind shifted. She looked up, so did he, far off barely. More than a shape stood a figure on horseback, watching, still, then it turned and vanished into the hills. Cashin's jaw tightened. You know who that was? He asked, voice low, gravel rough. She didn't answer. Just set the bread down. And for the first time, her face cracked, not fear. Not pain, but something deeper. She looked at him and said softly, You buried something, someone, but you didn't bury it deep enough. He stood slowly. The firelight catching on the edge of his glass eye. His hand trembled slightly, not from fear, from memory. At dawn they rode again. Through salt flats and thorn brush, through dry gullies where the vultures circled slow. She didn't ask where they were going. He didn't tell her. Maybe he didn't know. By midday, they stopped at an old well, half choked by weeds. He offered her water first. She drank without speaking, then wiped her mouth with the back of her wrist. Asterisk then, softly, she said, "Cashin." Asterisk, he looked up. Startled, asterisk, "I never told you my name." She shrugged, eyes distant. "You said it in your sleep." He stared at her for a long moment, the wind tugging at the brim of his hat. Then she said, almost gently, asterisk, "She died in the cold, your wife. With a child in her arms. That's what you forgot." He staggered back a step. The well behind him, the sun above. The weight of her words in his chest, like iron. Asterisk, how could she know that? He hadn't told a soul, not even the priest. And the child, the girl looked away, as if the fire in her voice had already cost too much. "I was there," she said, then climbed back onto the horse. Quiet as breath, he stood for a long time, hand on the rope of the old well, staring down into the dark, as if the past were still down there, still whispering. Asterisk, still waiting to be pulled up. Night fell again. Asterisk. They reached the canyon trail. Dry rock and juniper twisted against the stars. She pointed once, wordless, toward a narrow path barely visible to the untrained eye. Asterisk. Cashin followed. Something in his gut turned cold. They made camp in a cave barely wide enough for the two of them. She lit the fire this time. He watched. Her hands steady, scarred, old pain hiding in new skin. Asterisk. As the flames rose, she took something from beneath her ragged dress, a folded square of cloth. Faded and stained, she opened it. A drawing. Asterisk. 3 people, a cabin, a fire. A baby in swaddling cloth. His breath hitched. His legs gave. Just a little, because the cabin was his. The baby was theirs. She held it toward him, her fingers trembling now. "I didn't lie," she whispered. "I remember everything." He didn't take it, didn't speak. Asterisk just stared, hollowed out, ash behind the eyes. The fire cracked. Outside, something howled. The girl turned her face away, and Cashin Red, who once rode through war with a knife between his teeth and no fear in his heart, leaned back against the rock wall, closed his eyes, and felt the storm coming. Not the kind that rips trees, the kind that opens graves. Asterisk. Asterisk. The fire had burned low, leaving a thin trail of smoke curling into the cave's throat. Cashin sat with his back against the cold stone, fingers knotted over his knee, jaw clenched against the weight that pressed deeper than bone. The drawing lay on the ground between them, half-shadowed, half-lit, like memory itself. Asterisk. She slept curled beside the embers, face turned to the wall, but not peaceful. Even in sleep, her brow furrowed. Her lips moved with words no one heard. Asterisk. Before dawn touched the canyon, Cashin stepped outside. The sky was iron gray. Dry lightning pulsed far off, flickering like some angry god hadn't quite decided where to strike. Asterisk. He didn't know her name, but she knew things no stranger should. He lit a cigar he didn't want and stared down the cliff's edge. Below, the rocks twisted and fell away into a dry riverbed. A hawk passed overhead, its cry jagged and sharp. Asterisk. Behind him, her voice broke the silence. They buried her near the firewood stack. Cashin didn't turn. "I was hiding in the crawl space." Your wife wrapped her arms around the child before the flames took hold. Still, he didn't move. I screamed, but my voice was smoke. The wind pulled at his coat. Finally, he asked, low, hoarse, "What was her name?" The girl stepped beside him, hair tangled, eyes quiet. "Delilah, your daughter." Cashin's hand moved to his coat, to the scar on his chest. Nowhere. "I thought she never made it?" Asterisk. The girl looked out across the canyon, voice soft as dry grass. "She didn't." He nodded slowly, as if the earth had shifted an inch beneath his boots. They didn't speak again as they packed. The horse was skittish, unsettled. The storm hadn't broken yet, but something in the air was shifting, charged and waiting. Asterisk. By mid-morning, the sky opened without warning. Asterisk. The wind came first, hot and fast, driving grit into their eyes. Then the dust storm roared in, a wall of red and brown swallowing the horizon. Asterisk. Cashin pulled the girl onto the horse. "Hold tight." He wrapped his coat around her and urged the animal forward, head down, mouth dry. They couldn't see 10 feet in front. Every breath tasted like gravel. The horse stumbled, panicked, then dropped. Cashin fell hard, pain knifing. Through his bad leg, the girl screamed. He grabbed her, pulled her to his side, covering her with his body as the wind shrieked. Hours passed. Maybe more. When it broke, the world lay flat and quiet, like death had sighed and left everything. Behind, the sun returned, ghostly and pale. Cashin opened his eyes, caked in red dust. The girl stirred beneath him. They were alive. The horse was gone. She pressed her hand to his ribs. "You're bleeding." He winced, tore the stitches. She helped him sit. Her hands were small, but sure. She tore a strip from her sleeve, pressed it against his side. Her fingers brushed the scar along his ribs, a long, curved burn. "How'd you get that?" she asked. He didn't answer. He never did. But she kept touching it gently, as if the story might rise from the skin. If she held long enough, they walked. He limped. She steadied him. For miles they moved through the aftermath. Branches snapped. Birds gone, silence loud. Near dusk they found an abandoned cabin, wood half rotted, windows gone. But it stood. Cashin collapsed onto the floorboards, breathing hard. She lit. The fire this time. He lay there, eyes half closed, chest rising slow. Then came the knock, soft, deliberate. The girl froze. Cashin's eye opened. "Stay back." He rose with effort. Knife in hand, another knock, louder. He opened the door a crack. A man stood there, wide-shouldered, face leathered by sun, one eye missing. His voice was quiet. "Looking for a girl?" "About this high, shackled, belongs to Boone McCrae." Cashin didn't move. The man sniffed the air, tilted his head. "That your fire?" Cashin said nothing. "She took something." "Something worth dying for." Cashin shut the door slow. The man didn't stop him, just smiled. "We'll be back by nightfall." Footsteps crunched away. Cashin turned. The girl stood in the corner, staring. "He's one of them." "Who's Boone McCrae?" She swallowed hard. "The one who burned your cabin." Something behind Cashin's ribs folded in on itself. "He said you weren't home." "Said it was justice." "That your wife?" She stopped herself. Cashin stepped closer. "Say it." She closed her eyes. "They said your wife gave food to a native child. That it made her a traitor. That they'd cleansed the land." Cashin sat slowly, voice quiet. "And you were that child?" She nodded. "I saw her kneel beside me, put her hand on my chest. She told me to breathe. That the fire couldn't take everything." Cashin looked down at his hands. The blood on them felt fresher now. At nightfall the riders returned. 3 men. One carried a rope. One laughed too loud. The one with the missing eye, stepped forward. "Come." Cashin waited on the porch. The girl stood behind the door with the knife. The man spoke first. "Boone's generous. Sod you could give her up. No trouble." "She's not yours." Cashin didn't answer. $3 don't buy you much, especially not a blood debt." The others moved off their horses, circling. Then a voice spoke. "From the trees. You want her?" The men turned. An old Apache stepped into the firelight, leather coat, feather at his neck, rifle in hand. He looked worn but unafraid. The one-eyed man growled. "This ain't your fight, old man." Tama said nothing. Just lifted the rifle. The girl stepped outside. "Don't, please." Cashin moved to shield her, but the riders didn't wait. Gunfire cracked. Sparks flew from the porch rail. Cashin shoved the girl down and fired twice from his boot sheath. One rider down. Tama took another with a shot clean through the gut. The last man charged. Cashin met him halfway, knife to throat. Blood hot, they struggled in the dirt. The man hissed. "She's not hers, don't you get it?" Cashin slammed him against the rail. "What do you mean?" "She's not her child. They stole her from McCrae's camp. The woman raised her like her own." The girl screamed. "No." Cashin froze. The man's blood slicked his hand. He let go. The body dropped. The girl. knelt beside Tama, who was slumped against the post. He was bleeding bad. She pressed his hand. "Stay with me?" Tama smiled faintly. "You remember me, don't you?" she asked. He nodded. "Your sister," she whispered. He touched her cheek with 2 fingers, then stilled. Cashin walked over. The girl didn't cry. She closed his eyes and held the back of his hand until the fire burned low. Cashin crouched beside her. "You okay?" She looked up, a fire behind her eyes that hadn't been there before. "He was the last one who knew who I was." Cashin said nothing. She unwrapped a small letter from beneath Tama's coat. "This was from her, your wife. She wrote it before she died." She handed it to him. The paper was brittle. The ink faded, but the name was clear. To Cashin read asterisk, "She is not of my blood, but she is my child. And if you ever find her, tell her she is more than the fire that took us." Cashin's hands shook. The girl leaned close. Asterisk, "Now you know why I whispered what I did." He closed his eyes and breathed for the first time in years. Asterisk. Asterisk smoke coiled through the canyon, thick with pine and blood. The fire from the night raid had left a black ring around the cabin, embers still pulsing low like the last breath of a dying star. Cashin stood alone in the ash, Tama's body wrapped in a woven blanket, the girl placing a flat river stone over his chest. Neither of them spoke. There were no words that could bear this weight. Asterisk. The dawn broke slow, pale and unsure, as if the sky feared to look down. Cashin watched the girl finish the burial, her fingers raw and her eyes too dry for tears. When she looked up, her face was hard, now older. The child was gone. What remained was something carved from fire and silence. Asterisk. Cashin handed her the letter again. She folded it gently, tucked it into the pocket of her dress like it was a heartbeat she couldn't risk losing. Asterisk. "We need to go," he said. His voice rasped, low and splintered. Asterisk. "To where?" He looked to the east, toward nothing. "To the grave. She said they buried her near the wood stack." Asterisk. The girl nodded. "The cabin was burned, but I remember the place." Asterisk. Cashin didn't ask how far. He didn't ask if she was sure. Asterisk. He just saddled what was left of the gear, and they started walking. Asterisk. The canyon gave way to high grass plains, the wind heavy with thunder from the west. Storm clouds gathered, slow and coiled, dragging long shadows. Across the open land, asterisk, they walked until their legs ached and the sky bled copper. By the time the trees appeared on the horizon, bent and brittle, Cashin felt something in his chest unspool. The girl stopped first. "There," she said. Asterisk. "What?" Remained of the cabin was only ash and a single blackened beam jutting from the dirt. But the woodpile still stood, crooked, half-eaten by fire. Asterisk. Cashin walked to it, knees stiff, breath shallow. The girl knelt beside the stack and began to dig, with her hands. Asterisk. No shovel, no tool, just fingers clawing through the dirt like she was trying to pull back time itself. He knelt beside her. Together they moved the earth, asterisk, until they found its small bones, wrapped in scorched cloth. A tiny silver locket melted along the edge, and inside it, somehow spared, was a drawing. Asterisk. A woman, a child, and a man with one eye. Cashin turned away. The wind screamed through the trees. Asterisk. The girl placed her hand on the cloth, then leaned forward and whispered, "I found him. I kept my promise." Asterisk. Cashin lit a fire beside the grave. Not to burn, but to remember. The locket he held until it burned his palm, then pressed it gently into the earth beside her bones. Asterisk. He sat back, staring at the ground. Asterisk. And then, without warning, they came, hooves, 3, maybe 4. He looked up. The girl already on her feet. Asterisk. A gang of riders crested the hill. Not bounty hunters. Boone McCrae. Cashin didn't need an introduction. Boone wore a long black coat, trimmed in red thread, hat pulled low. His face was sunsplit, his smile full of teeth, but no warmth. Asterisk. Thought I'd find you here, Boone called out. Asterisk. Cashin stood. The girl stepped beside him. Asterisk. Boone gestured. That one ain't yours. She belongs to me. Was taken from my camp when she was barely 6. I fed her, taught her to read. Then your woman stole her and lit my men on fire. Asterisk. She saved her, Cashin said. Asterisk. Boone shrugged. Call it what you want. She was mine. He dismounted slow, so I'll take her now. Cashin didn't move. The girl didn't flinch. Boone chuckled. You gonna fight me? You ain't the man you were. Cashin looked at the grave, at the locket, at the child who should have lived, then back at Boone. I'm not, he said. I'm worse. He drew fast knife first, a jagged curve of steel from his boot, slicing the air with a grunt. Boone pulled his pistol, but the girl was quicker. She threw a stone. It struck his hand. The shot went wild. Cashin lunged, tackling Boone to the ground. They rolled through dirt and firelight. Boone's fist cracked against his jaw. But Cashin didn't let go. Not this time. He slammed Boone's head into the ground. Once, twice, blood spilled across the grave. Boone reached for his pistol again, but the girl was already there. She stepped on it, and for a long, bitter second, no one moved. Cashin knelt over Boone. Breathing hard, the knife trembled in his hand. Boone smirked. Go on. Kill me. Cashin stared down at him. The man who burned his family, who took his wife, his daughter, who hunted this girl across a country of ghosts. He raised the knife, then let it fall to the dirt. Boone blinked. I'm not giving you what you want, Cashin said. You'll rot. You'll ride home with your face broken, your men gone, and your name turned to dust. Boone laughed, short and bitter. You think this ends with mercy? Cashin leaned close. No, it ends with memory. He stood. Boone didn't follow. He stayed kneeling, blood dripping from his lip, eyes full of hate. Cashin turned to the girl. She didn't look at Boone, only at the grave. Only at the stone she placed beside the bones. She whispered, It's done. They left before the storm broke. By the time they reached the ridge, thunder cracked behind them. Rain swept the plains like a great hand scrubbing clean what had come before. They found shelter in a grove, built a small fire beneath the trees. Cashin sat on a fallen log. The girl took off the pendant he'd given her earlier, his wife's, and, handed it back. It's not mine, she said. Cashin shook his head. It was never mine to keep. She gave it to you. Long before I found you, The girl looked down, unsure. You really think she meant for me to have it? He nodded. Once. She knew what love was. And she gave it to you? They sat in silence as the storm raged. She leaned against his shoulder, and for the first time, he let her. In the morning, the sky was clean. Cashin gathered their things. The girl looked east. What now? She asked. He studied the horizon, then smiled, barely. There's a place up north. River runs through it, quiet, cold, winters, good land. We could build something, She tilted her head. A cabin? He nodded. She grinned. With a wood stack? He chuckled, the sound dry and unused. Maybe a porch swing. She held the pendant to her chest. You think we'll make it? His voice was soft. We already did. They walked into the wind, step by step. Not to forget what was lost, but to carry it forward. Not everyone gets to survive, but some souls get to start again, even if the world tried to burn them down.